These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you.
Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. I recently got some questions in my DMs that were really good questions, but weren't quite enough to make a dedicated video out of, so I decided to do another Q&A and answer your questions. How has your understanding of forgiveness changed since deconstructing Christianity? This is a really good question. The way I feel about it has kind of shifted and changed even over the time, that I've been out of the church. It's been almost 5 years and it has kind of gone a little bit all over the place in that time. When you're in the church, forgiveness is seen as incredibly important. And it was kind of drilled into me from a young age that you couldn't be forgiven of your sins if you didn't forgive others. And so it was really, really important to me. But then when I deconstructed, I kind of had this like angry phase where I was like, who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, if somebody is offensive to me or does something to me, like, I'm not expected to forgive because I didn't believe in any of that. And like, does it even really matter at that point? Where I'm at now has kind of come about because of my journey with mindfulness. I don't think that it is necessary because obviously I don't think that there's like this great afterlife where you're going to be judged and, you forgiving people for what they've done to you will play a part in that. And otherwise, like, if you don't forgive, then you're not worthy of forgiveness and like all of this stuff. I don't believe in any of that. But I do think that forgiving other people can be very healing. If you are familiar with my story, you know that my husband and I were disowned by his parents a couple of years ago. And it's one of the most difficult things that we've ever gone through. For me personally, the more time has gone on, the more and more we have learned that they really truly did a lot that was very, very hurtful. So, obviously everything that happened when it happened was hard and sad and terrible. But before that, and since then, they have done a lot of things that were extremely hurtful and offensive. And it's been very difficult. And, I've thought a lot about like, could I ever forgive them? Have I forgiven them? Like, where do I fall on that? Like, is it even important to forgive them? And where I've kind of come down on that is that I'm not 100% sure that I could really ever fully forgive them. And the reason why is the definition of forgiveness is to stop harboring resentment or anger towards somebody that has done something to offend you or hurt you. And like, the truth is, I still do feel a lot of resentment toward them for a lot of reasons. I mean, and it's hard for me to not feel that way. And I mean, how could I not? Like, there's so many things that they did that were so hurtful on purpose. Like, they tried to destroy my marriage. A lot of the things that they did and said were so incredibly hurtful. I'm not sure that I can ever not have any resentment towards them. But if you were to like a little bit more loosely define forgiveness as like being able to let go of the relationship and move on with my life, then like, yeah, I think I've gotten to that point. And sorry if this is like kind of going off on a tangent a little bit, but one of the ways that I got there, you've heard a lot about like, if somebody does something to hurt you, write them a letter that they will never read. And that is something that I ended up doing to my in-laws, in the past few months. I sat down and I wrote the longest letter that I've ever written. Just saying how I felt about everything, like bringing up so many different points, going into detail about like my feelings on all of it, the things that they said, like, why would you say this? Why would you lie about this? This hurts so much, like laying it all out. And by the time I got to the end of that letter, I already felt so much better. And I was able to, end it with like, I hope that you're able to heal. Like, I hope that you're able to move on with your life and leave me alone and let me live mine. And it's been like a couple months since I did that. Obviously, I never sent it to them. They'll never read it. But it was really healing for me to write it all down, especially because a lot of their communication with us was writing us really hateful, nasty letters. And it was healing to do the same thing, but not hateful, to just like write down how I felt about all of it and get those feelings out onto paper. And like I said, I don't think that I'm required to forgive them. I don't think that I'm going to be judged in the afterlife for not forgiving them. But throughout all of this process, I've learned to have more empathy for them, and had more insight into maybe why they are the way that they are and why they've made the choices that they've made. And even though I don't think that excuses their behavior, it makes me understand it a little bit better. And I don't necessarily forgive them if that means letting go of like all resentment that I have, but I am ready to like let go of the relationship and let go of what happened and just move on with my life. And so like circling back to the question itself, like how do you feel about forgiveness after deconstructing? I do think it can be healing. And I think that even if I haven't gotten all the way there, I've healed enough to feel like the amount of forgiveness that I'm, you know, able to have in a situation is good enough. But I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling anger. I think it's okay to feel angry when somebody does something that hurts you. And I think that healing comes when you're able to maybe not completely forgive them and forget about what happened, but move on. I feel like I've gotten to that point where I can, you know, move on. That's something that happened and it hurt and I still harbor some resentment about it, but I'm ready to let go of it. I'm ready to move on in a different direction. I hope that answers your question. I know it was kind of like roundabout, but I hope that talking about where I've gotten in a forgiveness journey kind of explains how I feel about it. Like, I do think it can be really healing, but I don't think it's a requirement. And for me personally, like, this is how I've used forgiveness to move on with my own resentment and anger towards somebody. I hope that helps. How do you engage with people who are still 100% in mentally? Is it even worth the effort? Another good question. I do think it's worth the effort if the relationship is worth the difficulties. And also I think it kind of depends not only on what your relationship with that person is like, how close you are, but how understanding they can be. Like, for example, I'm still really close with all my grandparents, even though they are very, very, very strong in the church. But they also are willing to let me be me without like shoving the church in my face or trying to change my mind or, you know, treating me any differently. And there are members of the church that will treat you differently. For example, my in-laws, there were a lot of things, a lot of like passive aggressive comments that they would make. And obviously behind the scenes, a lot of really terrible things that were going on that we didn't know about. And so in that sort of situation, I don't think it's worth it at all to continue to try to have a relationship. But on the other hand, like my grandparents, I'm still very willing to have a relationship with them because they don't endanger my mental well-being and my mental health. They allow me to be who I am and I have peace in those relationships and I don't feel bad about it. Basically, all in all, if it is doable without sacrificing your own peace, then I think totally continue, have a relationship. And you know, when there's difficulties or when you butt heads, like navigate through those in the most peaceful way you can. But if they are unwilling to do that with you, me personally, I don't think it's worth it. And that's coming from somebody who has maintained some relationships and also completely cut off others. Some of them are worth it. It really just depends on the person and if they're willing to work with you. I watched your Mormon Stories interview recently and was struck by how early in your journey out you started making videos. How have you seen your content change over the years, and what parts of that had to do with your journey and what parts had to do more with general content creation? I've definitely seen my content change a lot over the years, and some of that is just like getting a little bit better at it. Like I used to record all my videos in my car with my phone and edit them on my phone, and it was like a pain in the butt. And then as I started making a little bit of money from my videos, I was able to save up and get like a decent camera and a light and a computer so that I could edit on a computer, and it made the whole process, like, you wouldn't believe how much faster my content creation is now that I'm actually able to record it on a camera and edit it on a computer. It makes a huge difference. So thank you so much if you have supported the channel in any way over the years. But my content has also changed a lot because I have changed a lot over the last 5 years. I mean, I left the church when I was 25 and I'm 30 now. And you know, I think that people change a lot in that time frame as it is, but I also went through like a giant upheaval where my whole life experience and my whole worldview changed. And then I've had to sort of navigate like my feelings on that. And like I said, as most people do when they leave the church, I went through an angry phase, and some of that translated into my earlier content where I was more snarky about it because I was feeling more snarky. Like I was genuinely feeling a lot of anger and resentment towards the church at that point. And like, obviously I still have a lot of that, but I've grown more and I've gotten past that like specifically angry phase. So there's still some times where I do feel anger, But I try not to let it into my content as much because, and this is another thing, like when I first left the church and I started making content, obviously it's geared toward ex-Mormons, and it usually is. It still usually is that way. But I also want to be relatable for Mormons who decide to watch my content, because I honestly believe that we have more in common than not. And you know, at the angry phase and that start of my journey, it didn't feel that way. It felt like us versus them. And I've learned a lot since then, to where I think that that's unhealthy. I really do think it's unhealthy to separate us and to be like on warring sides, like we're, you know, clashing against each other. I think we should be trying more to work together, because there are things about the church that are not good. And I think that any person who truly can have some introspection and not just be super biased because you're a member of the church and you have to defend the church with every bit of your soul, I think that if you can take a step back, anybody really can recognize that there are things about the church throughout its history and today that are not good and that would be better if they were changed. And I think that trying to be more relatable for Mormons so that, you know, they don't feel as attacked and like backed into a corner where they have to lash out and defend the church, I think that that's much better for everybody. I think that it's a better way to incite change, and I think it's a better way for Mormons to be more open and understanding. And I want that for ex-Mormons too. Like I said, I have relationships with people in the church that are extremely important to me. I don't think that becoming an ex-Mormon means that you can no longer have friends and family and connections within the church. So as time has gone on, as I've become more mindful, as I have become more empathetic, as I have learned more, I feel like my content has shifted from more bitter, more angry, more snarky, to more understanding, more empathetic. And I think that's a good thing in general. I can't figure out how the eternal family thing works. If you are living with your parents for eternity, are your husband and kids there with you? Is he with his parents? Who takes care of the kids? That's a really good question, and honestly one that I can't answer for you because the church doesn't have a good answer for you. When I was a member, I guess I just would have said that, like, just like how you visit your family on special occasions and holidays and, you know, you go over for Sunday dinner and stuff like that, I guess I figured that that's how the afterlife would work if you were, you know, in the celestial kingdom or whatever. I guess I just sort of assumed that you would kind of just live with your spouse and then like visit your kids and visit your parents and, you know, something like that. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But, you know, the afterlife in Mormonism is very convoluted and there's lots of things that don't 100% make sense. But if you were to ask in church, they wouldn't really have an answer for you. So I don't really have an answer for you other than what I pictured in my Mormon mind. The longer you're out of the church, you seem to use less makeup, and when you do, it looks more natural. Did you feel pressured to wear makeup? Was it a mask to hide behind? I know there was a quote from an apostle suggesting it. I hope this doesn't come off as inappropriate. It's just meant as food for thought. No problem. So, I mean, there was pressure in the church to wear makeup, to look a certain way, present a certain way. But, you know, I don't think that that has really had much of an impact on my makeup and style choices recently. Honestly, I just kind of stopped wearing as much makeup over the last summer because I was going swimming with my kids 3 or 4 times a week. And if we weren't swimming, we were going on a hike or going to a splash pad or doing some other outdoor thing where it was like, why would I bother doing my hair and makeup if we're just gonna go get in the pool, or we're just gonna go on a hike and get sweaty and then have to take a shower when we get home anyway? And around that same time, as summer was starting and I was getting more sun, like my freckles were starting to come out, and I realized that if I wore a lot of foundation, it covered them up, and I actually really like my freckles, so I decided to stop wearing foundation. Pretty soon after that is when I kind of just stopped wearing makeup every day because we were going swimming a lot. I stopped curling my hair all the time because, again, we were going swimming all the time, so what was the point? And I started realizing in that time that, like, throughout the course of my adult life and even as a teenager, from the time I was like 13, I did not want to be seen without makeup, and I was really insecure about the way I looked without it. And so I decided that, like, I wanted to be okay with what I looked like without makeup on or without doing my hair. And so it kind of just all came about at the same time where I'm like, I want to be confident in myself as I am. I also don't want to worry about having to redo my makeup after I get in the pool. Oh, and I also decided that I liked doing brown mascara better because I think that it complements my color better. And so anyway, all of this happened at like the same time. So when I do my makeup now, I use brown mascara instead of black. So it's not as harsh, it's more, you know, subtle, and I feel like it matches my complexion better. And as far as like when I choose to wear makeup or not, or do my hair or not, like I haven't curled my hair in like a month. I've just been letting it do its own natural thing. And then I wear makeup once or twice a week, maybe just when I want to, instead of doing it every single day the way that I used to. And I found that really freeing, actually. I've enjoyed it. And, you know, some people will sometimes ask like, are you okay? You look sick. And it's like, I'm just not wearing makeup today. But for the most part, I've found it really enjoyable. I like having more time in the mornings because I'm not spending as much time doing makeup. And I feel entirely comfortable going out and running errands and doing things with a bare face. And I feel like it's just another step in this journey of like self-love, self-acceptance, and feeling good about who I am. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. The beliefs of the afterlife explained. So I actually did this video with my husband where we, you know, went in depth into the Mormon afterlife. I'm not gonna like redo it in this video because this video is pretty recent and I feel like it answers it pretty good. So I'll put the link in the description. Do you ever have the unwanted feeling of going back? Honestly, no. I don't think I've had that feeling one time since I left. The things that I liked about the church, I can find without it. And I honestly, I have not had that feeling of like wishing I could go back ever. Is it true a veil is placed over the face of Mormon women before they are buried? And if so, why? Do they also do this to the bodies of men? I think that's something that they definitely used to do. I'm not sure if they still do it because in the temple, until recently, women wore a veil over their face during pretty much the entirety. And that's not the case anymore. So I don't know if that has changed for funerals and burials as well. If somebody knows, you'll have to let me know. I've only been to the funerals of men in the church recently, so I'm not sure. How much money do they take from you? Do you pay for various services? So obviously there's your 10% tithe, that is 10% of your income. There's also fast offerings, which is you fast for the first and second meal on the first Sunday of every month. And then the money that you would have spent on that food, you give to the church. And that's for your whole family. So if you have like 8 kids, you and your 8 kids would not eat for breakfast and lunch that day. And then you would donate all that money to the church as fast offerings. And they also would tell you like, but don't feel like you have to stop there. You can donate more than that if you want. You also pay for your garments and your temple clothes, which can actually be pretty expensive depending on what you get. But yeah, the church doesn't pay for that. You buy that stuff yourself. If you go on a mission, you pay to go on your mission. It's expensive too. Like it's very expensive. The church does not cover that. You have to pay for that. There's also lots of like incidentals. Like when I was growing up in the church, my parents were very active in the young women's for my mom, and my dad was very active in the scouting program. And the church like gives an allotment of money for each of those programs. Usually ended up going over budget, and my parents a lot of times paid out of pocket for some of the activities and things because they had gone out of the budget that the church gives to the young men and young women for those programs and those activities. So there's things like that you just end up paying for. That's all I can think of right now, but I guarantee you there's probably more stuff that is just not popping into my head. So if you can think of more, leave them in the comments. Have you seen my 2-hour reaction to your video? Thanks. No. And I never will. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. If you've noticed, I typically never do like reaction videos to, you know, other creators, or I think the only video that I've really done that was like a full reaction was the last week's video where I reacted to Jeffrey R. Holland, which I feel a little bit differently about doing because it's a leader of the Mormon church. It's not just a lay person. I don't like reaction videos to other creators and things like that. Like I personally myself, this is just me, and I don't think like there's anything wrong with it, but like there's a lot of people that do videos as reactions to like Girl Defined, reactions to Paul and Morgan, reactions to any of those like religious people that do YouTube videos and stuff. I personally cannot get behind it. It feels icky to me. At least the way that most people do it, because it turns into, oftentimes, even if they don't mean it to, it comes across as like you're attacking like really stupid, dumb things about the people. I would rather go after ideas and go after like, the church has done a lot of really bad things and implemented bad things. I want to talk about those things and not like people. So people have asked me before to react to like Mormon influencers and stuff, and I just can't do it. It's not for me. And other people making videos about me, I will never watch them. I will never watch them. I'm far too sensitive of a soul to hear people say mean things about me like that. It's bad enough getting the comments. I will never watch a video that somebody makes about me. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. Why do so many ex-LDS specifically become atheists in particular? Why not some other viewpoint? I mean, I can only answer for myself, but I think that my journey is probably similar to other people's. When I realized that the Mormon church wasn't true, I wanted to remain a Christian because I felt like just because Mormonism isn't true, that doesn't mean the Bible isn't true. That doesn't mean Jesus and the God aren't real. So I still wanted to maintain that. But I also was having doubts about my whole worldview because Mormonism was everything to me. So instead of just remaining a Christian and believing in Jesus and reading the Bible, because that was what I wanted to do, I thought to myself, I'm going to keep learning because I learned that Mormonism wasn't true. What can I learn about the rest of my faith? What can I learn about, you know, the things that I've been choosing to do or say or think or be based on my beliefs and that are completely not true. They were totally fake. And so I didn't want to like be homophobic for no freaking reason. Like I didn't want to continue making choices based on a faith if that faith wasn't true. So I continued to do research. And I think that ends up being true for a lot of ex-Mormons as well, where, you know, fooled me once, shame on you, but fooled me twice, shame on me. I wanted to make sure that my beliefs and the things that I was doing and the way I was behaving based on those things, like I couldn't be wrong again. And I didn't want to be a fence sitter either. So I like dug in hard with the research, and I don't think that that's super uncommon. Okay, I've been talking for absolutely forever, so I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. I'll probably do another one of these in the future because I have several Q&A videos. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try in the first few hours after the video releases to be in there answering. Thank you guys, I really appreciate you being here. Special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. And extra special thank you to Amy, Doug Davis, and Tance for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
These promises strong as a spell, I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.